Good evening, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, together with the Presidential Communications Office.
We bring you the latest, widest, and most comprehensive news coverage from the People's Television, IBC, Philippine News Agency, Philippine Information Agency, and Presidential Broadcast Service. I'm Princess Abiba Saripauda.
And I'm Joe Fernandez. We are from Radyo Pilipinas. Welcome to Balitang Pambansa. Tonight's headlines. The government wants to double its efforts to go after those behind the continuation of POGO operations despite the total ban. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. engaged in several meetings with economic partners to improve and further cement relations that will bring about development that will ultimately benefit Filipinos. The National Security Council, or NSC, insists that the U.S. Typhoon missile system will remain in the country despite opposition from China. Senate President Francis Chis Escudero reveals his proposed calendar for the impeachment proceedings. Though tens of thousands of foreign-based POGO workers have been sent home since the start of the year, some residual groups still remain and have gone under the radar and into the shadows to engage in scams and criminal money-making schemes, with law enforcement hot on their tracks to put them away for good. Meanwhile, the palace is not letting the PNP chief and his officers off the hook in their latest caper into the EDSA busway, and reminds all and sundry that the special lane is solely for ambulances and vehicles in life or death situations. Our Kenneth Paciente has more, to include the latest move by the DOTR chief to scrap the RFID payment method in expressways.
Double effort. That is what the palace wants authorities to do to completely eradicate POGO operations in the country. According to PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro, law enforcement agencies must be mobilized to go after those behind these operations, especially since despite the total ban on POGO in the country, some operators are still being caught continuing this illegal practice secretly. Although it has not yet been discussed, she said that a study will be conducted to determine whether an amendment to Executive Order Number 74, which mandates the total ban on POGO operations, is necessary.
Dahil po ngayon ay nagkakaroon po ng problema ayon sa balita, pag-iigtingin po natin at pag-aaralin pa po natin mabuti kung ano pa ang dapat gawin. Katulad po ng aking sinabi, mabilisan pong aksyon ito dahil hindi po talaga dapat nananatili rito ang mga illegal na operasyon ng POGO.
Castro also believes that local government units who have jurisdiction over areas where POGO guerrilla operations are often discovered should be investigated.
Alamin po natin kung hanggang saan po ang naging partisipasyon ng mga opisyal ng LGU, kung nabigyan po ito ng permit, kahit wala pong tamang dokumento, at lumalabas po na lahat itong mga taong ito na nagkaroon po ng tsansang makapagtrabaho sa Pilipinas. Malamang ay hindi lamang po mga opisyal ng LGU ang maaaring managot. Kailangan po nating matrace kung paano nakapasok ang mga foreigners, Chinese nationals in particular, or may iba pa, no? May iba pa pong mga foreign nationals. At ito po ay pag-aaralan natin at makikipagtulungan po tayo sa lahat ng ahensya para masugpo ito.
There should be no room for abuse, especially among government officials, according to the palace. This statement is in connection with a police convoy spotted using the EDSA busway and justifying it by claiming they had an important meeting. Malacanang emphasized that only ambulances and fire trucks responding to emergencies are allowed to use this lane.
Ang palasyo po ay ayaw po ng abuso. Definitely po, kung sino yung dapat managot, kung may pang-aabuso, ay dapat lamang pong managot. Hindi po ito tolerate ng palasyo ang mga abusong gawain, kung meron.
The palace also reiterated that the president maintains his position that the International Criminal Court, or ICC, has no jurisdiction over the country. This after the Office of the Solicitor General encouraged the ICC to just hand over evidence related to the previous administration's illegal drugs war.
Nandun pa rin po ang ating polisiya na wala pong jurisdiction ang ICC sa ngayon. But kapag po humingi ng tulong ang Interpol, magkukumplay po tayo at tutulong po tayo.
Castro was also asked about the palace's view on the actions taken by newly appointed Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon, especially his decision to cancel the total cashless transaction systems on expressways, which seems to contravene government's push for digitalization. She emphasized that the secretary should be afforded enough time to study various issues within the department.
Sabi nga niya po ay kailangan nating gawing perpekto yung expressway system natin. So, pagbigyan po muna natin ang ating appointed, newly appointed Secretary of DOTR, Vince Dizon. At kapag po ito ay kanya naaral, maaari po siya magbigay ng report kung kinakailangan talaga 100% na dito sa expressway payment.
Castro also believes that SIM card registration should now be done face-to-face, given the persistence of tech scams despite the implementation of the SIM card registration law. She said this is to prevent the abuse of online registration and to ensure only legitimate individuals own registered SIM cards. Meanwhile, the government, she said, is ready to comply should the Supreme Court order the restoration of PhilHealth's lost subsidy. From PTV Manila, Kenneth Pasyente, Balitang Pambansa.
A number of special and distinguished guests came calling on the president yesterday and today, to include Masato Kanda, newly named chief of the Asian Development Bank, which the president hailed as the most reliable partner in the country's economic development, with a list of big-ticket and mission-critical projects to be bankrolled in part by the ADB. Meanwhile, the president also welcomed and received the new addition to the diplomatic corps, envoy from Slovenia, Palestine, Egypt, and Sweden, with whom the president expressed wishes and greater efforts to improve bilateral relations. Arclazel Pardilia sums it up in this report.
The Philippines and the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, further strengthened economic ties. This following a meeting between President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and the new ADB President Masato Kanda, who paid a courtesy call at Malacanang. The chief executive considers the ADB one of the most important partners of the Philippines. The ADB is a regional institution that provides financial and technical assistance to countries in Asia and the Pacific to improve their economy, infrastructure, and quality of life of the people.
The development that we have achieved that have been assisted by the ADB is the most important project that we have had in the Philippines. And yet, we find that in the last years, recently, that has even increased. And so I think this is very encouraging, very promising.
The ADB serves as the Philippines' key partner in programs and initiatives aimed at improving the welfare of Filipinos. Among these projects are the construction of MRT Line 4, which is expected to ease traffic congestion in Metro Manila. The Bataan-Cavite Interlink Bridge, which will facilitate faster transportation from Central Luzon to Calabarzon. The Walang Gutom Project, part of the food stamp program, which aims to provide sufficient and decent food for the country's poorest citizens. The Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Project, which will address the challenges posed by climate change. The relationship between the Philippines, Slovenia, and Palestine is also expected to strengthen. In separate ceremonies in Malacanang, President Marcos received the credentials of the ambassador-designates of both countries. The Philippines and Slovenia agreed on advancing international law, while the Philippines and Palestine committed to promoting peace and prosperity. The Philippines is also set to deepen bilateral relations with Sweden and Egypt. In separate meetings with the ambassador-designates of the two nations, the Philippines and Sweden reaffirmed their shared stance on freedom of navigation and respect for human rights. Meanwhile, the Philippines and Egypt vow to strengthen bilateral relations to boost investments and trade between the two countries. From PTV Manila, Clazel Pardilia, Balitang Pambansa.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday led the inauguration of the third phase of the Pasig Bigyang Buhay Muli project, marking another milestone in the ongoing revitalization of the Pasig River. President Marcos Jr. personally walked through and inspected the key attractions of Phase 3, which includes the newly improved Plaza Mexico, Maestranza Wall, and the Fort Santiago Riverwalk, with a total of 600 meters development span. Joining the Chief Executive was Housing Secretary Jere Cozar, who leads the Interagency Council for the Pasig River Urban Development Project. With the completion of Phase 3, the total length of the revitalized and accessible sections of the Pasig River now extends to 1.11 kilometers. Following the official inauguration, Phase 3 of the Pasig River Development Project will be open to the public on Friday, allowing visitors to explore and enjoy the newly restored areas over the weekend. Meanwhile, Ilocos Norte District 1st District Representative and Presidential son Sandro Marcos led the inaugural awarding ceremony of the 2024 Outstanding Young Men in Malacanang. This aims to recognize the excellence in leadership, innovation, and contributions of some young individuals in their chosen field or career. Some people who received the recognition are Jenica Beatriz Dizon, Ziga Dulay, Billy Crystal Dumaliang, Rocinto Ian Lumbres, Benazir Martinez, Jose Gabriel Meya, Pia Granada, Dennis Umali, Brent Andrew Viray, and Pia Wurzbach.
On the other news, the Typhoon missile system set up here with the help of ally benefactor the United States last year is going nowhere. And China, the bully superpower, can rant and fret all she wants, but the commander-in-chief, the AFP, and the National Security Council will have none of China's childish reactions and proceed with beefing up the country's defense and security, as we hear more from our Patrick De Jesus.
The National Security Council stands firm on keeping the U.S. Typhoon missile system in the Philippines. This, despite continued opposition from China, which insists it should be removed, as stated in a commentary by the official newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party. The NSC said that the Philippines has the right to upgrade its capabilities, as the country has not commented on China's missile inventory, which is considered a greater threat to regional stability. The NSC added that the Typhoon missile system, which has been deployed since last year, is solely for the defense of the Philippines, while adhering to the Constitution, which prohibits the use of nuclear weapons or participation in an offensive war. The Armed Forces of the Philippines echoed this stance.
We continue to uphold, sir, our stand on that no particular entity or foreign nation can dictate how we will be fortifying our defenses. So kung ano po yung modern challenges that we're facing, titingnan po natin how we would counter and mitigate po attacks to our sovereignty.
The President has also maintained his pronouncement on keeping the Typhoon missile system in the Philippines, previously stating that it will only be returned if China stops its harassment in the West Philippine Sea.
Meron po siyang mga demands. Kung gustong mag-demand po ng China, meron po tayong counter-demand dyan.
Meanwhile, the BRP Teresa Magbanwa has once again been deployed to the West Philippine Sea.
You do not possess any legal authority to patrol within the Philippines Exclusive Economic Zone. Your illegal activity will be reported to higher authorities. Over.
The Philippine Coast Guard vessel is monitoring the China Coast Guard vessel CCG-3301, which is within 110 nautical miles of Zambales. Meanwhile, at the ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting, Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. emphasized the importance of regional unity in addressing various security challenges. The Secretary urged ASEAN countries to expand joint patrols and training, while also warning against external influence that could destabilize the region. On the sidelines, Teodoro met with Malaysian Defense Minister Mohamed Khaled Nordin, discussing their country's territorial dispute, which they agreed to resolve through diplomatic means. From the People's Television Network, Patrick De Jesus, Balitang Pambansa.
Senate President Francis Escudero has figured out a tentative timeline for Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment. He's penciled in the 2nd of June for the presentation of articles by the prosecutorial panel and approval of the revised rules of procedure for the proceedings. Thereafter, on June 4th, the issuance of summons for witnesses will proceed, followed by the acceptance of pleadings slated from June 14th to the 24th. Then the pre-trial phase can begin and wrap up on the 24th and 25th. When the 20th Congress resumes session on the 28th, with its new cast of senators-elect are sworn in, the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte will begin the next day, which is the 30th of July. By then, the Senate Secretary shall assume the position of Clerk of Court to assist the presiding officer, while the Sergeant of Arms will begin his duties in serving the summons to all concerned. At the same time, all other positions or functions in the trial shall have been filled out.
In related news, the House Prosecution Panel is now 90 to 95% prepared for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. According to House Assistant Majority Leader Jill Bongalon, one of the designated prosecutors, the panel has already gathered witnesses and evidence from previous hearings on strengthening their case to persuade senator judges that the impeachment complaint has merit. The prosecution panel also welcomed the Senate's ongoing preparations for the trial, considering it is a significant development. House Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability Chair Joel Chua, another designated prosecutor, said that the Senate's latest actions demonstrate a commitment to upholding accountability at the highest levels of government.
Kasi yung mga testigos naman, of course, na salang din naman natin yan sa mga naging pagdinig sa Kongreso. So probably we already have the names of the witnesses. Kaya ngayon pinag-aaralan namin kung magdadagdag pa kami or kung enough na yung mga taong yun bilang aming testigo dito po sa impeachment case.
In related news, House Assistant Majority Leader Jill Bongalon has urged the House Committees on Basic Education and Culture and Good Government and Public Accountability to launch an investigation into the alleged presence of ghost beneficiaries in the Department of Education's or DepEd Senior High School Voucher Program. Bongalon stressed that millions of pesos in public funds have been wasted due to this issue. He further underscored the needs to hold the Congress a joint motu proprio inquiry based on reports gathered by the lawmaker. A alleged listing of non-existent students as program beneficiaries dates back to 2016 and continued under the leadership of Vice President Sara Duterte when she served as DepEd Secretary.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, asked all candidates to remove illegally posted campaign materials in various areas of the country. However, there are still a few of them who disobeyed the poll body. This is why COMELEC will issue a notice to remove the posters of 34 party list organizations and inform them of the need to abide by the notice within 3 days. The poll body warned the candidates to remove their campaign materials immediately or risk disqualification.
Despite the continued implementation of the Public Transport Modernization Program, newly appointed Department of Transportation or DOTR Secretary Vince Dizon acknowledged the challenges that need to be addressed. Secretary Dizon stressed that the welfare of the public, utility vehicle or PUV drivers remains a major concern. He also underscored that he will not allow them to face further hardships under the program. Meanwhile, Senator Grace Poe pointed out several pressing issues in the modernization initiative, including the lack of a well-planned route system, the high cost of new units, and the absence of sufficient subsidies for drivers. She further noted that for 2025, funding has been allocated to improve the program, hoping it will be utilized to resolve its discrepancies. Senator Poe also urged the DOTR to listen to the grievances of drivers and commuters and to pave the way for a fair and humane modernization of the country's transport sector. In other news, Pag-ibig released 130 billion pesos housing loan to build more than 9,000 houses for their members. Through Pag-ibig's housing loan program, members can build their own houses, buy residential lots, or acquire foreclosed Pag-ibig properties at a lower cost. The agency reaffirmed its commitment to assure that members have access to affordable and quality housing loans, which can give them opportunity to live on their own houses.
Ako si Elisa Maylon Galos, taga Alegria, Surigao del Norte. Kini nga akoan ning ako karon pagkadawat aning title, wala gud na ni palandunga, pero kadumdum ako sa ako mga parents pa. Grabe gud na to ilahago sa ako parents. Kung ma-imagine na pasidaan sila si nanay, tatay, grabe ganito ang ilang kahago, magbaktas palagi ito sila. Oo, tungod lamang sa mga anak. Ang ako ikasulti sa giprograma sa atong presidente nga si Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., tingon man sa atong sekretary sa agrarian nga si Conrado M. Estrella III. Mapasalamat gud ako sa inyo, sir. Tugda ko nga sa kini karon nga gikupta na dako nga title sa amo na gud nga pangalan, tungod kini sa inyo usab nga panlimbasog nga matagaan ang mga katawhan. Oo, ug kaugalingon nila nga yuta.
Back on Balitang Pambansa, the Department of Energy, or DOE, is working with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, on nuclear energy development in the country. Meanwhile, the popular mall is expanding its mini-mart business with plans to open new stores across Luzon this year. These and more in tonight's business wrap from the Philippine News Agency.
In our business news, the Department of Energy is working with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Nuclear Energy Agency to help develop the Philippines' nuclear energy capabilities. In a meeting on February 24 in Taguig City, Energy Secretary Rafael Otilla said the country has made significant progress in ratifying agreements that will pave the way for a safe, sustainable, and responsible nuclear energy program. OECD NEA Director General William Magwood IV, meanwhile, pledged to support the program by providing technical expertise and developing the local workforce. The government aims to introduce nuclear energy technologies that can add 1,200 megawatts into the country's energy mix by 2032. Meanwhile, SM-affiliated convenience store chain Alphamart is partnering with more micro, small, and medium enterprises to help them expand their business and promote inclusive growth. SM Investments Corporation announced Alphamart's latest partnership with Laundry Express, a self-service laundry shop with over 52 outlets across the country. Alphamart previously partnered with MSME's Cocoa Fresh Tea and Juice and Potato Corner. It targets to open 200 stores in Luzon this year, adding to the 2,100 outlets and 2,500 jobs opened in 2024. In other news, provincial and city bus operators in Metro Manila have filed a fare increase petition before the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board. The operators said the fare hike will cover the rising costs of fuel, higher tollway fees, and high terminal fees from mall and transport hubs like the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange and One Ayala. The petition calls for an increase in base fare to 15 pesos for ordinary buses from 13 pesos and 17 pesos for aircon buses from 15 pesos. LTFRB Chairperson Chofilo Guadis said the board will have to study the petition first. That's the latest business news from the Philippine News Agency. This is Wilnard Bacelonia for Balitang Pambansa.
After 3 months of close fishing season, fisherfolk again around Visayan Sea can continue pursuing their means of living as the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, lifted the fishing ban. April Grace Padilla, or PIA Western Visayas, tells us more.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources lifted the annual closed season for fishing in the Visayan Sea after 3 months of rest, locally called Pahuay Sang Baybay, or respite of the sea. Marking its 12th year since the intensified implementation in 2013, this science-based conservation measure continues to show promising results in ensuring the sustainability of key fish species, particularly sardines, herrings, and mackerels, according to BFAR.
Our goal is not just enforcement, but ensuring that sustainable fishing practices become second nature to all operators. I thank you for your continued commitment to protecting the Visayan Sea. Let's remain vigilant and proactive, ensuring that this decade of success leads to even greater achievements in the year ahead.
In Western Visayas, 49 joint seaborne patrols, 45 port-sided market inspections, 31 landing denial operations, and 28 various information and education activities were conducted to ensure compliance. In the process, 6 commercial-scale trawls and 3 modified seines, or hulbot-hulbot, were apprehended during the 3-month period. The closed fishing season in the portion of the Visayan Sea was implemented from November 15, 2024 to February 15, 2025. This period covered 25 local government units across Iloilo, Capiz, Negros Occidental, and Cebu. From PIA Western Visayas, April Grace Padilla for Balitang Pambansa.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE Region 10, provides food packs to 100 former child laborers in Cagayan de Oro and livelihood grants to 28 parents and guardians of child laborers under the Department Integrated Livelihood Program. Jam Rucat, the Philippine Information Agency Region 10, has the details.
A total of 100 former child laborers received food packs through Project Angel Tree. Meanwhile, about 28 parents and guardians of child laborers received a total of 840,000 pesos worth of livelihood grants through Department of Labor and Employment Region 10 Integrated Livelihood Program. During the 2025 Child Labor Information and Service Caravan at SMCDO Downtown, the Labor Department Chair of the Regional Council Against Child Labor emphasized the need to amplify information dissemination on anti-child labor laws and existing support programs. The caravan highlighted the shared responsibility from the government, from the civil society, from the business sector, and the public in general in eradicating child labor. Among the recipients of the livelihood grants and food packs are Benito Borer and his guardian Angelina Haliasgo, who adopted him after both his parents separated and left him.
Sana bata po, wala pa ko na edad ko 12. Sugod na ko na nabaw sa mga uban-uban sa akong papa usay, sa mga akong silingan, walibor, fraction. Kay dili man ko mga eskwela tinarong kay ako pobre man kayo, mga lugos man pareto bugas. Mga na mga para sa nagasulay na kayo mo, ay tubig, ay kurente, mga ayo ra sa silingan.
Akong pangandoy ma'am sa akong mga bata, nga unta maka-eskwela. Labi na gyud ma'am, nga gitagaan namin sa dugang abag sa gobyerno, labi na sa duli, gikan sa duli. Na akong paning kamutan nga magpadayon gyud akong mga anak pag-eskwela.
Based on the latest data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, child laborers in the country decreased in 2023. Meanwhile, across age groups, child laborers 15 to 17 years old continued to account for the largest share of working children engaged in child labor.
From Philippine Information Agency Region 10, Jam Rucat for Balitang Pambansa.
And that wraps up our rundown of the latest, widest, and most comprehensive news and information From all across the nation, from Radyo Pilipinas, I'm Joe Fernandez.
And yes, inshallah, tune in tomorrow as we will be having our moon sighting as we will be welcoming Ramadan 2025. This is your trusted news source, always ready to inform and serve the Filipino people. Catch Balitang Pambansa again tomorrow at 7 a.m., 12 noon, 6 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. for more updates and developments. From Radyo Pilipinas, I'm Princess Abiba Saripaudak, and this is Balitang Pambansa.